Brilliant. So today with me, I have Lucy Whittington of lucywhittington.com. And I first met Lucy probably about 8 or 9 years ago now, wasn't it? When I spoke at one of Lucy's weekend events. And that was all about creating, running, promoting your own business. And Lucy's sort of unique take on things is that she believes passionately you need to find your thing. So we're going to find out a little bit more about Lucy today and about what finding your thing really means. So what is finding your thing, Lucy?
So finding your thing is about finding the thing that you do brilliantly, and it's kind of over and above just what you're qualified in or just what your experience is. So, lots of us will have done certain jobs or studied certain things, got qualifications, but your thing is that kind of next level of how you do it and why you do it the way you do it, and making sure you articulate that so that people get that you're different from, another accountant or another marketer, or just really positioning you differently so you can stand out in, all the competition as doing your thing better or differently or smarter or quicker or whatever it is than everyone else.
Yeah. So your USP, why you're different, why people should invest money in you, why people should sort of move towards you as their choice.
Yeah, it's really demonstrating your value and your best work. I think, my overarching thing is I want everyone doing their thing because that's what they're most brilliant at. So it's often even a slice of what you do right now. So you might be qualified in something, but that can be quite broad ranging. So in theory, I'm qualified in marketing, but actually I'm not qualified in every single type of marketing. I do a slice of that. And I think that's something that we all think we need to we all need to be an expert in absolutely every detail of what it is that we're qualified in, and that's just not the case. And it's okay to have a thing or a take on that, or even something that your thing could be a recipe of things that you've brought together. So it could be based on your experience, different markets you've been in, or how you've worked before, and you kind of bring it all together and create a new recipe from ingredients that you've gathered really through your life.
How do you know when you found your thing?
I think, so the first thing I'm going to say is your thing will evolve and it will change. There is something that you do, but just by the very nature of us being humans, and then we keep learning and we keep paying attention, our thing will evolve and change. I know mine has, but essentially your thing is the thing you do effortlessly. It's what you find really, really easy. It's when you're in flow. It's when you're doing your best work. It's just when it feels like everything's just working, that's when you know you're doing your thing. So if it's feeling hard or you're pushing, that's probably not your thing. It's the thing that you would, default go to and go, I could just do this all day. I find it really easy. Or if you can't see it, it's often what people are already coming to you to do because they recognise that in you. So they might come to you because you're really good at explaining things, or you take the time to teach things really well, or you're really good at organising things, or you just see detail that other people don't see. Something like that, it's a natural flow. It's a natural flow of who you are and your energy. So the tricky thing about that is sometimes you won't notice it because you're just doing it. It often means you need other people to help you see it, or you need to recognise, where was those last 2 hours gone? I've just been completely absorbed in this. And that's your thing. So, often when we're working, there are elements of the work that we do, hopefully, that we're in that kind of a flow state, if you like. And that's not to say that, when you run your own business doing your own thing, you spend every minute of every day like that. You don't. That's not real. But, there's still jobs that need to get done and admin tasks and things like that. But having said that, there are some people who love admin tasks and they'll be completely in their flow and, buried in a spreadsheet or planning out a project. And so it's about noticing where you're doing your best work and it's easy and it's flowing. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. So some of the people watching this, they will want to do what they've been doing. They might have perhaps been doing work where they think, I can set up as a consultant, and they can see how what they do can earn them money. But you might have some people equally who are thinking, I've always wanted to start my own business. I always wanted to be my own boss. But I need to find something that, basically earns you money and just brings the money in.
A big idea sometimes.
Yeah. Well. So if there's something that you do find quite easy and effortlessly and so on, how do you know if you're going to make enough money from it? That's going to be a big question.
Yeah, so from a business context, obviously everyone can have their thing, and you might have to be okay that you do your thing as a hobby because there's just not money in it. It's just something that you love to do. Most things you can turn into getting paid for, because there's different ways of getting paid for things. So everyone's immediate reaction is always, what is a thing I can do that someone will pay me for? And if you've always had a job, that's your obvious reaction to that. It's like, if I go and do this function, I can get paid this money for it. And that is one way to get paid for doing your thing. But there are lots of other ways. So that's the first thing to think about is, rather than just doing it, could I teach other people to do it? You know, if I find something really easy, can I pass that approach on, or, you know, how I do that, your recipe, if you like. Can I show other people? Can I train other people and then send them out to do it and for me keep some of the money? That's certainly a model. Can you write about it? Can you create, you know, a course about it, or write a book about it, or write about it in a way that, you know, people would pay a subscription for that, and you could keep teaching them or keep telling them information or keep collating information. So it's not always about doing. That is the easiest option, but often it can be about, you know, sharing ideas or teaching it or writing or, you know, creating courses, whatever makes sense. So it's not always about doing. So that's the first thing to think about. And that obviously means that you can often make more money than just what you have time available to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, for example, if you're brilliant at baking, you know, baking cakes, you can't get paid, you know, £500 necessarily for making a cake, unless you're like, you know, top wedding cake maker. But if you could teach other people how to do what you do, you know, every time you made a cake, if you filmed it and took photos and explained all the process and then sold that course over and over again, you could easily make £500 a cake, even if you only sold the cake £50, because you could sell a course on it. So you kind of need to think, what can I do to make money? But ultimately, the key thing is, when you've worked out what your thing is, you do need to ask questions of, does it solve a problem?
Yeah.
And will people pay to have this problem solved? So even if it solves a problem, it doesn't always mean it's a valuable enough problem that people will, you know, want to pay for. And the easiest way to do that is to look if someone else is doing it already. I think you know, too many of us think we need to have that kind of eureka moment of like, I've got a new idea, I'm an inventor, I've come up with something brand new. Very occasionally, people do come up with new ideas in business, but absolutely the majority of the time, most people who start a business have taken something that is already solving a problem and either added a different flavour to it, or taken it to a different market or a different audience, or just done something slightly different. Yeah. Very few things are brand new inventions now. And if you're someone who's been waiting for that moment, but knows that they want to start their own business or work for themselves, I would say just get started with something. You don't have to wait for that moment to strike, because honestly, it probably won't. And that's okay, because sometimes you might come up with a brilliant idea or invention that there just is no need for. And if you do want to make money from you know, doing your thing, it's actually a better bet if you go into a market where people are already making money doing that. That's a pretty good way of knowing you're going to get paid for doing this. Now, obviously the trick there is to do it slightly differently, or, you know, have a different story or a different angle, you know, maybe take it to a different market, whatever it is. But the best way to know if something's going to make money is to see if someone else is already making money doing it, if I'm really honest.
Okay, so doing your research. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you are doing your thing, there's a choice.
If other people are doing it, I think that's the worry. If you haven't run a business before, you think you have to do something so brand new, otherwise it's not worth it. And that's understanding how markets work. You know, very rarely is there no room in a market for someone else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So when you do your thing, I mean, I've mentioned it before that, you know, there's a choice between sort of going freelance, you know, or actually starting a business. So for you that have done both, what's the big difference and the pros and cons?
The big difference, I mean, there are some, you know, there's some boring differences, like accounting differences, and you know, you might want to be self-employed as a freelancer, and you might want to set up a limited company as a business. But the biggest difference really is how you think about it. So typically, as a freelancer, you still think of doing work, but you get paid for your time. So it's just, like having a job, or you get paid on tasks or projects or outcomes. Maybe it's not on time. It might be on, a piece of work that you do, and it takes however long it takes.
Yeah.
But you're just really thinking about it in terms of having a job. The only difference is, as a freelancer, you quite often have more than one boss. So you just add in the extra kind of juggle of, okay, I've got 3 people that want this done by Friday. I need to manage my time to make that happen. And also you have to go out and get your own work as well. So, you're not just sitting there and someone's going, right, here's your task for today, please get this done. You're having to, create the work as well. But being a freelancer is the easiest way to get going. Like, if you know that what you want to do is to just get paid for what you already do as a job, just go and see if you can get work. Like, talk to your contacts, talk to your network, find out what work there is going. I mean, when I started my business, I did start it as a business from day one, because I always knew I'd planned for it to be more than just me being a consultant. But in terms of the work I did, I finished, my background's in marketing. I worked in the software industry. I had conversations with all the people I'd met through my job who ran other software companies, and I ended up getting, a small number of clients who I was on retainer for, and they were all my new bosses, and I did their marketing work for them, on day rates. That's how I kind of managed that. I had a few other things that I did as projects. I do some writing projects, and that's what I did. And but in terms of the mindset of it, I didn't go into the mindset in terms of this is all I'll ever do. I did see it growing as a business. So that's really the key for me. The difference between going freelance, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you want to just have control of your own work and pick and choose the jobs you want to do, and to work when and where you want, and work in your pajamas if you want, or whatever you want to do, and take holidays when you want, there's all those good things. Don't forget there's the downside as well, like no sick pay, and having to manage all your own finances and pay. But I went into it with the mindset of a business, which was that I knew it would always be more than just me selling my time. So over time I added other people in the business. So I brought in other freelancers and contractors to do different tasks. And my husband joined me in the business. He does web design and graphic design. So we always knew it would be a business that did other things, and I've gone on to selling courses and writing books and doing other work. So that's a mindset thing, and it brings its own admin as well. You have to be more complicated accounting and all that kind of thing. But it's really about, when you're a business owner, you think of different income streams, and maybe employing other people, or working with more people than just yourself. Not necessarily, but in most cases, you're thinking of something bigger than just you doing work. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know before we started this recording, we were chatting about some recent projects that you've been involved in, some recent businesses, and the importance of the vibe and the team in them. That's another element, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think often when you've been working, you've just had to, unless you're the person who's been hiring, you've had to just work with the people that you're working with. It's something that you haven't always necessarily been in control of. And actually that's a massive benefit of working for yourself, or running your own business, is you actually then get to choose not only the team that you create around you, but you also get to choose your customers. And don't forget that. It's very easy when you first start to say yes to everything. And don't get me wrong, if you need the money, do say yes to work when it comes along. But also bear in mind that you can also say no. If you know that they're going to be a hard work client or high maintenance.
I've come across them.
Yeah, we've all met them.
Yeah.
You learn very quickly in business that hard work clients aren't worth the effort. No matter how much they're paying you. No, it's usually worth saying thanks but no thanks, and then moving on and finding the next client. And it's easy to forget that, and it is easy to sit here and say that. But I still now, even though I often could do with the work and the business, like, will say no to projects, because I've learned over time that who you work with and how you like to work, and also again it's about being valued. If you're going into work with other businesses, or you're selling a service, if people aren't valuing what you do, it's very easy to take that, personally. And quite often it's nothing to do with who you are and the work you do and the value you offer. It's just selling it to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And you just don't value it. Or someone over here might value it 10 times and think you're amazing, and someone over here is just like, yeah, well, it was all right, thanks. And as a business owner, you need to be in charge of, where you hang out, who you're working with, what market you're in. So sometimes it's not that what you're selling isn't any good, it's just you're selling it to the wrong people. They just don't value it enough. That's not to say, you can't go, but I've had this amazing idea and, everyone should benefit from it. Like, do listen to your market if no one is saying that they want it or they want to buy from you. But, don't let a couple of bad customer experiences put you off doing something when the majority of people that you're working with do really like what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, those customers' experiences, those negative ones, will come whether you're freelance or a business. Anyway.
Correct.
They're just part of it all.
You can't avoid
the whole experience. Yeah. Yeah.
You can try and mitigate them as much as possible by being as bold as possible in your marketing and your conversations when you're working with clients. And and that's probably something you've learned from the world of work as well, is that if you're the more transparent you are, the more clear you are of what works well and what doesn't, the better results you're going to get, whether that's people you've worked with on your team, or clients you've had to deal with in business. But it's the same. It sometimes feels more personal when you're doing it for you, but don't let it be. I think that's what people mean when they talk about, it's just business. Sometimes it just is.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got an idea for a business. You think you found your thing. What are the first things you should be doing to sort of test it out?
Yeah, so the first thing to do is not try and do all the things you think you should do, which is like, I need a big fancy website now, and I'm going to go and get a logo designed, and I'm going to get all my business cards done, I'm going to do all this, I'm going to do all that. Honestly, that's the easiest way to spend a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, it will make you feel like you have a business. But actually, the best thing you can actually do is to start selling and start having conversations, start seeing if there's demand, sell something, even if it's just, a trial price, or, we call it a beta launch, or an MVP, what a lot of people use, which is a minimum viable product, which is a fancy name for try something out that's not going to cost you too much or take up too much of your time, and just see how it goes. I think we all think we need to have everything ready and everything done. And this is coming from experience. And I know you might feel that you want to have everything perfect. It would be like, opening a shop and wanting it to be the most beautiful shop you've ever seen. You'd spend loads of money on kitting it out. You'd have the perfect window display. You'd be full of stock. When actually what you need to do is to start a market stall. And start it really easy with 1 or 2 products, and just grab some fabric from home and make the stall look nice. Like, don't spend loads of money on it. Don't do it badly, but be really open that this is you just trying the market out. Make some calls, talk to friends and family, let them know what you're doing. Like, don't spend money on ads unless you have to. If you're selling a service, start messaging people, start calling people, get on the phone. I know it's very old fashioned, but don't expect going on social media for 10 hours a day to suddenly magic you some customers. If there are people you already know that you can have real conversations with, have as many conversations as possible. And of course you can translate those conversations into posting on LinkedIn, or talking about it on Facebook, or having some great Instagram posts, whatever you need to do. As long as your audience are where you're having that conversation, do that. But don't think everything has to be perfect. I've sold projects and programs, from having like a 1-page document, a 2-page PDF that I've done. You don't need a fancy website. If you want a website, get a website. That's great. You don't need one. I think having an online presence helps. So, have your LinkedIn up to date, have a Facebook page if you're a bit more consumer facing, or have an Instagram account. But you don't need a website. You might want a website, but you don't need one. So, it's called being lean. And being agile. It's very much about what can you do with the least, because the easiest and quickest way to spend a lot of money is to suddenly start splashing out on all of the shiny things you think you might need to start a business. And honestly, you need to just sell.
Yeah.
And however you can do that, do it. If it's calling people, if it's posting every day, if it's having conversations, if it's, you know, getting people to introduce you. And that's another thing as well. If you want to go after a market and you know people are already talking to that market, go and speak to them. Say, like, how can I help you? How can I get in front of your audience? You know, and whether you have to, you know, offer to help them for free, and then they might email their audience or post something on, you know, their social media. Go and find the people who are already talking the market you want to talk to. Obviously, they're not selling what you sell; they're selling something complementary. But those people, you know, if you've got something of value to offer, will quite often want to put it in front of their market, because that's something that they don't sell themselves, but their market, you know, their audience would see it as them sort of, you know, serving them too. They're like, oh, great, you know, I didn't realise, you know. So going back to the very simple baking example, you know, say you're brilliant at selling cakes, you want to promote that, but you want to promote it, you know, wedding cakes, then go to someone who's maybe a wedding photographer. You know, obviously they're having conversations with people who are getting married who might want cakes. So, you know, it's really simple stuff. And I think people worry and panic about all the things they need to do and having them ready on day one. That's absolutely not true. I got all my first clients just from picking up the phone.
Yeah.
And that's still works today. Obviously now you can do it on Zoom, which is, you know, you have to do your hair, but or not. But you know, it's the same principle. You know, I still get clients from, you know, connecting with people on LinkedIn or speaking, you know, online at conferences or speaking for other people's audiences or writing for those audiences, and then people connect with me and they're having conversations. That still works really, really well. And when you think about it, it's logical, because if you're asking someone to buy from you, they've got to know who you are. They're going to want to, you know, understand, you know, your story and where you're coming from and how it works. And so trying to stop kind of random people on the street, obviously you're not allowed to do that now, but you know, if you're kind of randomly stopping people or kind of just shouting about it to everyone, which is the equivalent of what social media can be, rather than having conversations with people that already know you or have a connection to you, or, you know, someone that you are friends with says, oh, have you heard about this person? Oh, they're doing this, it's really great. You're going to listen to your friend. It's just the same principle. And I think it's very easy to get dazzled and distracted by what you think launching a business needs to look like versus what actually works.
Yeah, leveraging your networks, talking to people. So I know you said that you don't need a whole website and shebang and that sort of thing. Is there anything you need as a minimum, would you say?
I would say as a minimum, if you're going to be emailing people and communicating with them, get an email address that isn't just a Gmail or an Outlook or a, you know, something that's obviously just your home address. Go and buy a URL, a web address. You know, it's literally pounds, a handful of pounds. And get that set up as your email. Obviously then if you've got that web address, you have it as a one-page website, or you can do something simple like get that URL to point to your Facebook page, or even a LinkedIn page. Get a little bit of help, someone technical if you don't know how to do it, and just repoint it to somewhere else on the web. It doesn't have to go to your website. Plenty of people run businesses off of a Facebook page, and obviously that's free. And, you know, but having a email address that isn't, you know, so-and-so123@gmail.com does make you look just a little bit more professional. And I would recommend sending I mean, you can still run it out of your Gmail account. I run all my emails out of my Gmail account. That's my business name. It does that is a few pounds, and it literally is a few pounds well spent. So I would definitely do that. If you know you're going to want to communicate with your customers, you know, on email, and you're collecting, you know, what we call an email list. So you're talking to lots of people and you want to kind of send them regular emails of what you're up to, or here's new offers or things you're doing. You know, it is worth getting some email software. You don't necessarily have to pay for that or pay a lot for that. But it's what we call an email system. So something like MailChimp or ActiveCampaign, something like that is really helpful. It just allows you to send bulk emails to people. So, you know, you're having lots of conversations, now you've got 50 or 100 people you want to update on, you know, a new product you're offering or a new service, you can just send the one email. That's something that's useful. Again, you might want a very simple CRM system, so customer relationship management, which is basically a database of people you're talking to. If you want to make loads of notes, but you can easily do that on a spreadsheet. You could easily do that on something like Trello, which is, you know, a little board you can write little notes on. This kind of takes you down a bit of a rabbit hole where you might think having the latest tool or the latest tech or the latest software is going to make you run a better business. That's absolute rubbish. What will help you run a better business is you understanding, you know, what it is you want to offer, who you want to offer it to, and what the messages are that people are responding to, and then selling to them. That's what's going to help you run a better business. These tools will help, but it's always about working out your system for your business. And by that I mean, you know, who do you want to talk to? What do you want to say to them? What's the offer you can make? What's the problem you can solve? How much is that going to cost? And how are you going to get the money from them? And then how are you going to serve them? How are you going to send them that product or deliver that service? That's your business system. Now, if you can get some technology and software to help make that work better, fantastic. But again, going back to the conversation of just get started, you have to do it all a little bit by hand to start with. And it's, you know, a couple of spreadsheets and you're sending emails out yourself. That's okay. For me, so much of it is about momentum. If you've not been in business before, the quicker you can get to someone paying you money, the better.
Yeah, better you feel as well, actually. The more motivated you are to go out and get more. Yeah.
And then you've got money to spend on all the, you know, the nice website instead of the one-page one or the one you built yourself. And it's always about evolution, a bit like how your thing will evolve. Like you'll work with the first 5 clients and you'll suddenly go, oh, I love doing this, but I don't like doing this. You might decide to not do that anymore and just stick to half of what you're offering. Or you might work with the first 100 clients before you figure out, you know, who your favorite clients are. Are they in a certain industry, or do they ask for certain jobs from you, or deliver certain products? Like businesses always evolve, so your thing will always get better for you and more refined. But the key is to just go out and do what you think with your best guess at the moment, you know, whether that's from asking people what they think you do best or you kind of knowing or figuring it out. Just go out with the thing that you think is near enough there, and then just pay attention. Pay attention all the time. What did you like doing? What did you not like doing? What do you want to do more of? You know, who do you want to work with? How do you want to work with them? And they're all decisions you get to make, which is brilliant, obviously. But don't forget that, because it's easy to kind of go, oh, people keep coming to me for this and they're all paying me money, but I kind of don't like it. Like, it's okay to stop doing it, or decide you might want to train someone up to do that because you don't like it and they might love it, and you can go off and do what you originally wanted to do. So there's so many options, but I think the key is not to get sidetracked by thinking it needs to be huge and perfect to start with. That's the biggest mistake I see most new business owners making. It honestly, it is the equivalent of, you know, signing the lease on a huge shop and buying loads and loads of stock and doing it, like, when you just don't know if people want to buy that yet.
No.
You know,
it can also be a form of procrastination as well, can't it?
Oh, of course, because you're very busy doing important work, spending 6 weeks on your website, and, you know, it doesn't matter how fancy and nice your website is or how beautiful your logo is, or, you know, if you haven't had lots of conversations with people and gauged whether they want to pay you money for what you do, fancy website is probably not going to change that.
Yeah. So we have talked a bit about tech, and I know that you've been involved in a few tech projects.
Yes.
Obviously, at the moment, tech is one of those things that people are thinking it's one of the areas that's going to bounce back from what's been happening with the lockdown and the virus and so on. Would you be encouraging people to look at tech, do you think, Lucy?
Tech as in for their business? To start a tech business.
Yeah.
Would I be encouraging it? Probably not.
Okay.
Unless you've got very deep pockets. Right, so tech's an industry that everyone underestimates. It's your classic, whatever you think the budget's going to be, it'll be 10 times that. However long you think it's going to take, it'll be more than that. I think, again, with tech, look at the problem that you're solving. There's always... So MVP really comes from the tech side of things. You know, it's very easy to spend a lot of money on coding and development and things like that. But again, test the market first. Is there a really simple version of what you want to launch? Can you build your own little e-commerce site before you make the app for, you know, a few thousand instead of hundreds of thousands? You know, can you go out and ask the market if they would buy this, and sell them like the service version of it before you sell the tech version? I think it's really important. understanding your market can never be underestimated. But at the same time, my note of caution there is what people say they will do and what they actually buy can often be quite different. So that's really important as well. You know, when you're thinking of a business idea, whether it's tech or not, and you go and ask your friends, they go, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. That's great, I'd do that. It's very different from then saying, okay, fine, can I have your £100? Can I have your £1,000? Can I have your £10,000? Because what people will say is a good idea, and you know, we all do it ourselves. We think that's a great idea, I'd do that, I'd love to go there on holiday, and then you find out how much it is and you decide that maybe you won't go there. And there was nothing wrong with a staycation after all, or whatever it is. Like, in business, the only votes that count are the ones that involve money. That's just how, you know, this is going back to my, you know, like I'm very sad and geeky, and I have an economics degree, and I love the mechanics of business, and I love markets, and honestly, a market will vote with its money. And if people can say your idea is brilliant all day long, but if no one is paying for it, it's just a brilliant idea. And I think that's also something to really bear in mind. So the quicker you can get out to a market, the quicker you can test an idea, you know, the quicker you know that people will pay for that. Now, again, you can do loads of research, and like I said, you know, you can see who else is selling this already. That will give you a really good idea, and it will tell you if it's possible. And obviously, if you have had a great idea, you know, in tech, often you can go out and get backing way before you make any money, sometimes way before you've even developed the product. If it really is, if you can really prove there is that gap in the market or that demand, then go for it. But you know, there's very few tech companies that have been self-funded, that have done well. There are some, but most are backed by venture capital. And actually, that going after funding is almost a job in itself. So going after funding is like a full-time job for months and months, versus building the app you've got. And again, all the people I know who've done well, you know, they started with something really simple and small, and it's evolved. They solved one problem as simply as possible, and then they evolved it and listened to what people wanted, and listened to what the market wanted. So I don't think tech's any different to any other market. It just often involves much bigger amounts of cash.
Okay. So you sort of got to know what you're doing, really, is what you're saying. Yeah,
or know that you can do it kind of quickly and easily to get started. Like I say, if you've got, you know, if you've got an idea for an app that's going to be kind of, you know, nationwide and solve this problem, there's no reason why you can't say it's selling something. You can't set up a really simple little e-commerce site using, you know, there's lots of sort of shop tools you can buy to plug into websites. It'll just cost you, you know, hundreds or, you know, a few £1,000s as opposed to, you know, 100, 200 plus for building an app. And, you know, start that and start it locally. You know, and then you can go to the next stage and go, okay, great, so there is a demand for this and people do want to pay for that. So if we turned it into an app and we took it to a bigger market, then, you know, if the trend that we've already shown works, that's what loads of investors look for anyway. They want to see, like, did it work on this scale? Then if we double that, does that then double? And do, you know, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for growth and how it works. And, you know, that's when you know you've got a good idea. It's, you know, can you sell more of it if you want to? And that's, again, going back to that difference between being a freelancer and being a business. You know, when you're a freelancer, you're only ever looking to sell your time, and at some point you'll hit a ceiling of how much you can charge for that, and that's where you can get to in your business, you know, in your income. Whereas if you're running a business, you might think, oh, well, me at capacity is this, but I could hire 5 other me's or 5 junior me's and sell them out at this rate, or I could turn this into a product, or I could, you know, turn this into some technology, and this could do this for me. I could put my knowledge into some technology, and then thousands of people could buy it. And that's more where you go when you're thinking like a business, as opposed to a freelancer who just wants to pick and choose some nice jobs to do. Both of them are fine. Like there's that, and again, this all comes back to how do you want to do your thing. Some people don't want to run a business. They don't want to run a team. Maybe you've had enough of that from being at work. Maybe you just love the idea of only having yourself to answer to, doing what you want when you want, and that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong way, but it is all part of doing your thing. You know, some of us, I worked on my own for a really long time. I mean, you know, my husband's in business, we had a few freelancers, but I didn't want to do anything bigger. And then a few years ago, I wanted to get involved with some much bigger projects. But that was something I felt I wanted to do at that time. And then it was all about, you know, who I was working with and what do I do. And you know, and that changes again. You don't have to make a decision now that is the decision that you're going to have to stick to forever.
Yeah, no, you're right. Things do change. I mean, years and years ago, I was in PR for a long time, and I actually ran a PR company, had really nice offices next to Tower Bridge, had staff. But actually, I found the whole thing quite stressful, the responsibility of making sure that money came in to pay people's mortgages. And I scaled back and went back to working from home and was much, much happier. And then years went by, you know, and now I'm drawn not to start a big company or anything, but I am drawn more to collaborating with people. So getting that sort of contact, that communication. Yeah.
And that's just down to, again, understanding how you work best and where you make your best contribution. And, you know, it may be that you start your own business, but very quickly you realise you want to be part of someone else's business, you know, and so
I've seen that happen.
Merge with them, or you're partner with them, or as a freelancer, you might want to get a little collective together, you know, where you've got other friends or you meet people through networking that, you know, you all have different skills, but you find that if one of you gets in with a client, they can recommend the rest of you. That can work really well as well. So I think that's another thing that I'll say is that if you're thinking of starting your own business or going to work for yourself, not to think about you doing this on your own. Like, you don't have to do this on your own. First of all, loads of us have done it before you, and we've made loads of mistakes, and we know all the things to avoid. So if you do nothing else, find someone who's like further down the road than you. You know, find a mentor, find a friend, find a colleague, or pay for advice, or read books. There's so many things that it's just not worth you making the mistakes of. You know, whether it's, you know, what to charge or how to put proposals out or how to approach clients or to do your marketing or your PR or whatever. There's so much advice that you don't need to make all of the mistakes. You'll still make some, and that's fine. You know, you and I know this from being in marketing and PR. You can't always judge a market. You have to sometimes experiment and go out. Marketeers' favourite phrase in the world is test and measure. So you have to, you know, there are things that won't work. You know, there'll be some marketing messages that don't work or offers you make that won't work, and just expect that. There's so many other sort of, you know, administrative or mechanical aspects to running a business or being on your own that just, there's no point you making all the mistakes when you don't need to. So, you know, become part of a network, you know, have a mentor or find a business coach or read some books or find some other freelancers and, you know, work together with them, or find other business owners. There's a huge opportunity for collaboration, and so many business owners and freelancers recognize that. You know, there's associations of freelancers that you can join, the same with businesses. There's networks in, you know, industries or just regionally or whatever. Like, I don't see why anyone who starts a business or goes freelance would need to sit there, you know, blank sheet of paper, page one, day one of my business time, what am I going to do? There's just no need for that. It's so great now that you can jump on so many brilliant resources and not have to figure so much stuff out. So the stuff you can't figure out, and no one ever can, which is, you know, getting your marketing just right, or your messages, your offers, that's all you've got to worry about. That's the only thing. That's really important.
Yeah, my last question was going to be, how do you get into the marketing mindset if you've been an employee all your life? But I think you've already answered it. It is about thinking, what can I take from other people? What can I see about what's worked for them? What can I be warned away from that hasn't? And using the benefit of other people's wisdom.
Yeah, I think the thing also with marketing is, you know, sales and marketing, if you've never had to market yourself, and even as someone who's worked in marketing other people's stuff or your company's stuff is very different to marketing your own stuff, mostly because, you know, a lot of us are quite reserved about talking about how amazing we are, and that's a big thing. You know, you might save it for your review at work, but even then, you know, it's a hard ask to go, actually, I'm really very good at this and I'm excellent at that, and that's why I'm going to charge you this amount of money for it, and I'm not going to give you a discount because you know, I'm worth that. And to be able to say that and really feel it and really mean it is difficult. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I can still remember, you know, the cold sweats and the we're coming to that bit in the conversation. They're going to ask how much I'm going to charge them, and like then you cannot think of anything else. They get their mouth, and I'm just going to tell them. And you know, and that's how it is. It's hard, but it does get easier. You do get better. You'll be more confident. Again, the more you sell, the testimonials you'll get, you'll start to value your work, and you will start to charge what you're worth. But the key thing about marketing that sends a lot of people into I don't know anything about marketing. You do. All marketing is communication. It's just conversations. If you just remember that marketing is just conversations, the key with marketing is having the right conversations with the right people at the right time. So you just need to translate that into, well, there's no point talking to this person about wedding cakes, you know, when they've been married for 20 years. Like, they're clearly not going to buy one. Whereas if you're talking to a couple who've just got engaged, obviously that might be the right conversation to have with the right people at the right time. The right time might be they're at a wedding fair, you know, or you know, they're looking for their wedding dress, and you happen to have, you know, a little pop-up stand in the wedding dress shop that day. Good time to have a conversation. So, you know, it's only ever about conversations. And the other thing that I'll say about that is, you can never have too many conversations, because even though you feel you're talking about it all the time, all the people that you're talking to won't hear it every time. So depending who you read or pay attention to, they always say you need to hear or see 7 or 11 marketing messages before you take action on something. So whether that's adverts or reading an article or, you know, a blog or something on social media, you as the publisher of all those things will see all of them, and you'll almost be like, I cannot believe how much I'm banging on about this. Like, I just don't stop talking about myself. And so you feel you're talking about it all of the time. But to your market, they might only see every 10th time you say something. And so it will always feel too much to you. It will always feel uncomfortable if you're not used to it. But you just need to keep having conversations. And don't limit those conversations. I'm just going to put something out once a week, or I'm just going to mention it then. Or the other mistake is also to save it for business occasions. So you don't just talk about what you do when you go networking. You talk about it when you bump into people, when you walk in the dog, or you talk about it when you just happen to be chatting to people, and you let them know what you do. The amount of work I've got through I mean, obviously don't be one of those people who just forces it into the conversation. Please let it flow naturally. But if you're just someone, you know, don't not talk about what you do. I think is the way to talk about that. Like, have conversations, and know that conversations can look like more formal marketing. You know, they might look like blog posts or posts on social media or an update. But they can just be conversations. You know, you're just chatting to people or letting people know what you do. You know, you're chatting to someone, you know, when you're at the gym in a class, or you're talking about something, or, you know, and not in a, do you want to buy my stuff way? That's never a good conversation. You'd never have that in a conversation. You just chat about, oh, I read this really great article this morning. It was about blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it was interesting to me because, you know, this was in the news and this is what I do. And I was starting to think, I wonder if there's a way I could help with that. And, you know, that's how you'd have a conversation. You wouldn't kind of just go, oh, buy my stuff. And the minute you find yourself thinking, you know, or saying, buy my stuff.
Oh, God.
that's when you go and visit some of those books or advice or other colleagues as to the, you know, what marketing's working for you. And it won't be the, you know, broadcasting non-stop, buy my stuff.
No, it won't.
That's the best advice. Marketing's just communication and conversation. You just have to have a lot more of them, and you have to be okay about talking about how brilliant what it is that you do is.
Yeah, which might be, as you say, might be uncomfortable after being an employee, but it does get easier. It does get easier. Yeah, and as you say, it's as more people get to know about you, you get more referrals, and more people start doing that for you, don't they?
And the easiest way, and this all circles back to what I said straight away, the easiest way to get more confident about what you do is to start selling it as quickly as possible. Because every time you sell it, not only will you have some cash, but you'll also hopefully have a great testimonial, and that will, you know, it is that rolling stone, you know, that snowball effect where you know, you get 1 or 2 clients, and then they tell 1 or 2 people, and then you share the testimonials. Don't be shy about sharing them either, you know, and then people go, oh, they are really good at what they do, maybe I should talk to them. And that works. That really works. So don't, you know, get selling as soon as possible. Don't worry about how fancy it has to be to get selling. You know, you can, I mean, I've sold projects on the basis of an email with a few bullet points in it, because I've had a great conversation. I've said, look, if you want to get started with this, we don't need, you know, and you're okay not to have a big proposal. I'll just put the key points in an email. You know, when would you like to get started? And send them the invoice.
Yeah, sometimes people actually prefer that, don't they? They just want to know the basics.
I don't want to sit through a 20-page proposal, because we all know we're just going to go to the last page and see how much it is.
Yeah. Okay. So big takeaway from today is find your thing and get on with it.
Yeah, don't worry about it if it's not your perfect thing right now, because that you'll get there. And you might not ever get there, but it'll just get better.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you, Lucy. As I said at the beginning, you can find out more about Lucy at lucywhittington.com. And Lucy actually has a book, don't you?
I do. I can do
Find Your Thing book.
Can I do my little, and here is my book. Find Your Thing.
So obviously that's available on Amazon.
Yes, and Audible, you can listen to me read it as well.
Yes. Well, thank you for your time today, Lucy.
You're very welcome.
Okay. All right then. Bye-bye.